We think, therefore we are. We are, therefore we do. We do, therefore we invent. And oh, we invent. Right from the beginning, we've been inventing for the basics, for the revolutionary, for the thing of beauty and wonder, to constantly recreate and reimagine the world we live in. And those inventions, they've made the world easier, richer, more fulfilling, more right for everybody. And each of them began just as a thought, a moment of, what if? Followed by a determined, why not? In that moment, an inventor is born. And the key to their success lies in the unusual idea they don't dismiss. It lies in their courage to challenge the status quo. It lies in the way they blend science, process, creativity, and hard work. It lies in their foresight that what I do today will have a lasting impact on the world. It lies in that magical moment when their idea stops being radical and becomes commonplace, difficult to live without, normal. And with that idea, they changed the world into what they imagined it could be. At TCS Research, we seek out and nurture these thinkers and doers. We aspire to create those life-changing, business-changing, humanity-changing inventions. With scientists and researchers and experts from across industries and disciplines, we collaborate to make people healthier, to provide clean energy, to make the digital world safer so that from different corners of the world, more inventors can have their moment of, what if? Why not? We invent for today, for tomorrow, and for the tomorrow after that, to create the future that's ours to shape, to make an impact on everything there is and on everything yet to come.
Hello friends, good evening, good afternoon, good morning to you, depending on where you are. I am Sachin Lodha, your host for this session today. I am Chief Scientist at TCS and I lead Cybersecurity and Privacy Research. This is a joint webinar organized by TCS in collaboration with ACM India. In fact, it is the 8th webinar as part of this joint webinar series. The idea is to bring renowned experts as part of this webinar series and let them talk about some cutting edge technology and the future, that will unfold in that domain. These webinars are happening on a quarterly basis and they are open for everyone, not just for ACM members. Friends, I'm also ACM India Council member and I want to take this opportunity to talk about ACM a bit. So let me just share a slide on ACM and just walk you through. So I hope my slide is visible. As you may know, ACM is world's largest educational and scientific computing society. There are more than 100,000 members worldwide, and there is a significant presence in India. About 15% members are from India, and we are very happy to note that more than half of them are student members. ACM India is sort of spread within India mainly through its chapters. So we have more than 25 professional chapters and more than 200 student chapters. And as part of ACM India Council, I'm happy to share that I co-lead the Student and Professional Engagement Committee. There is a lot of interesting activities being done as part of this committee. We have distinguished speaker and eminent speaker program where renowned experts can visit your chapter and talk on some very cutting edge topic. ACM pays for their travel Recently, we have started funding interesting activities that are happening in chapters. There is a proposal cycle, and you can submit your proposals and get financial support. In fact, we also recognize our chapters at our annual event every year. There are 6 different categories of awards, and they are also having some very handsome cash prizes. On the research front, again, there are a number of initiatives that we are doing. So for example, for PhD students, we have PhD Clinic and Invention Setu that give them opportunity to get up close and personal with best research practices that are outside their parent institute. We also do summer and winter schools for students, where again we bring experts from all over the country, and these schools run for about a couple of weeks on a given topic. For many of these initiatives, the travel and logistic support is provided by ACM. ACM also has 6, and they conduct some top conferences like COTS, COMAD, ISEC, and even Compute. So I want to just talk about Compute a bit because next iteration of Compute is going to happen in November, and call for papers is out. And we'll urge faculty members to submit their work to this Compute. Again, there are travel grants available even for students to attend these events. We have several awards, both at individual, student, or professional levels to recognize the star achievers, in our community. Last but not the least, we also have a special focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we also have very vibrant ACMW India group. They again have a lot of chapters, and we organize Lady Ada programming competition and hackathon specifically for girl students. We also have at least one summer school every year for our girl students. So I hope this is kind of catering to wider needs, of diverse community here in India. And if you are not a member, I'll really urge you to become a member and help the community and help yourself in the process. Thank you. So with that now, I'm going to go back to the focus of today's webinar, which is cybersecurity. So as we know, security is making sure that bad things don't happen. And typically you need to know what those bad things are. But the problem is that with any new technology, there are many unknown unknowns. And that's really a nightmare, from security standpoint. Secondly, whenever you infuse new technology in your existing IT ecosystem, it basically sort of changes the topology of those systems, and sort of expands the attack surface. And new technology is also going to help attackers, by providing them cheaper, faster, better weapons to craft attacks. So all in all, I mean, with new technology, there are always the challenges that we need to worry about. And we have seen extreme pace of digitalization in maybe last decade or so. We have AI, blockchain, cloud, IoT, mobility, quantum, you name them, all of them sort of being adopted across verticals, by businesses. And they are facing significant challenges. And it's really the need of the hour that we do something proactive now, to make cybersecurity sort of central as well as make cyberspace safe and secure for future. So that's the topic of our webinar today, and I'm very glad to sort of share that we have a very expert speaker lineup today for this webinar. See, this webinar will be in two parts. So part one, we'll have a keynote followed by a panel discussion later. Okay. And you can, but don't wait for your questions. You audience is, you have joined in a silence mode, and you can obviously share your questions at any point, in your YouTube or LinkedIn comments box. We'll pick them up from there. And towards the end of this session, we'll try to answer as many of them as possible. With that, I am very happy now to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Yuval Elovici, who is the Director of Telecom Innovation Laboratories at Ben-Gurion University. He's head of DGU Cybersecurity Research Center. He's professor in the Department of Software and Information Systems Engineering at DGU in Israel. His primary research interests are computer and network security, cybersecurity, web intelligence, information warfare, side channel attacks, AI security, and machine learning. So he has very diverse interests. He's also an entrepreneur. He is the co-founder of Morphisec, a startup company that develops innovative cybersecurity mechanisms that relate to moving target defense. Today, Yuval is going to talk about a very novel side channel attack called optical cryptanalysis. So welcome, Yuval. Welcome to this webinar, and we are all ears to listen to you. So please take it away.
Hi, everybody. I will be very happy to present to you some of the research work that was done in Cyber at BGU. And I will try to share my screen to show you a presentation that describes our research. Can I start, Sachin?
Yes, Yuval. Please go ahead. Thank you.
I'm going to talk to you about optical cryptanalysis. It's a new type of side channel attack. And I think that part of the goal of researchers in general is to tell the public about new types of attack that may influence their life. And in many cases, we are also presenting some kind of countermeasure to recommend how to cope with the new type of attack. In this case, it's a new type of side channel attack. First of all, about this talk, you can find much more information about this talk in two papers. That one of them is part of the ACM. It was published in CCS 23. It's about optical cryptanalysis, recovering cryptographic keys from power LED light fluctuations. And the second paper that was published this year in Security and Privacy 24, it's about video-based cryptanalysis, extracting cryptographic keys from video footage of device power LED. Whoever is interested about more information about what I'm going to describe to you today can access these papers and get more information. First of all, a little bit about the background. Cryptanalysis is the process used to breach crypto systems and gain access to contents of encrypted messages, or even in the optimal way from the point of view of the attacker, to obtain the keys themselves. Now, cryptanalytic side channel attacks refer to the process used to breach crypto systems and gain access to contents of encrypted messages based on digital or physical leakage. This research is going to focus more about physical leakage, mainly that is being done in an optical manner. Let me give you some overview about cryptanalytic side channel attacks evolution. One of the first work was published in 96. In 96, we learned that cryptanalysis can be performed by exploiting data-dependent execution. In other words, measuring the time that it takes to make an execution can reveal something about the key of the cryptographic system. Later on, there was an evolution of power leakage published in 1999 and remote timing leakage published in 2005. Now, cryptanalysis can be performed from side effects of the dependent execution. So not barely about measuring the execution time. Sometimes we can do other measurement that is a proxy for the execution time that can allow us to recover the cryptographic key. Then there was an evolution of the power leakage analysis in the form of EMR leakage and acoustic leakage. In all the cases, what we performed, we managed to find a side channel that can give us some hints about the cryptographic encryption process that allows us to extract the encryption key or decipher the data that is being encrypted. So over the last 28 years, research highlighted the fact that high-end sensors like scope, RF scanner, ultrasonic microphones can be utilized to perform cryptanalysis. But what about optical leakage? Until now, I didn't talk about any optical leakage that can be used to attack cryptographic algorithms. So there were several works that related to cryptanalytic using optical attacks. But in these cases, the cryptanalysis can be performed from optical traces obtained by a photodiode that is capturing the infrared emitted from the transistors. In other words, we need to expose the silicon of the processor that is doing the cryptanalysis, that it is doing the cryptographic encryption, and we should observe the transistors and to record the emitted light from them in order to do a cryptanalysis, something that is very, very complicated to be done on regular equipment that is covered and shielded. So this leads to several open questions. Open question one, can we apply cryptanalytic optical attack to recover secret key from commercial shielded devices running commonly used cryptographic libraries? That's the first question that we ask ourselves. The second question that we ask ourselves, can we apply cryptanalytic side channel attacks to recover secret keys with COTS devices instead of high-end sensors? COTS devices could be, for example, a regular security camera. Can we use that to extract cryptographic key from regular devices? And the answer to these both questions is yes. And we publish it in the two publications that I demonstrated to you at the beginning of my talk. And in the rest of my talk, I'm going to give you some more highlights about what we managed to accomplish. So the first paper focused on optical cryptanalysis, how to recover cryptographic keys from power LED lights fluctuations of a specific device that is doing encryptions. So how did we think about this idea? How actually we came to this idea? So it came via several types of research that we did in our lab. The first research we published in Usenix 22 called LampPhone. LampPhone real-time passive sound recovery from light bulb vibration. What we actually did in this research, we took a photodiode, a very, very sensitive photodiode, connected it to a telescope, as you see here on the left. And using the telescope, we measured the fluctuations of a light bulb. And we discovered that actually the light bulb acts like the diaphragm of a microphone, and it vibrates. And actually we can recover sound in the proximity of the light bulb just by looking at the light bulb, even from 35 meters. So you can see here a very, very short demo, how we actually managed to do it.
We will make America great again.
And we managed to recover this sound from 25 meters. Then we moved to an evolution of this research, which we called glowworm attack. It's an optical temp test, sound recovery via device power indicator LED. What we managed to accomplish here, you see this speaker? This speaker has a power LED. So we managed to show that by the previous setup, a telescope where a photodiode connects to the telescope, we looked at the power LED of the speaker, and we managed to reconstruct what is being emitted by this speaker from remote, even from 35 meters. So you see, we managed to recover what the speaker, even from 35 meters, is emitting just by looking using a telescope on the power LED. Now, why we managed to accomplish that? We managed to accomplish that because first of all, we realized that the LED itself can transmit very, very, very high frequencies, up to 500 kilohertz easily. Secondly, the power supply of the device itself, the power LED is connected to the power supply, and the power supply supplies power to the amplifier of the speaker. And the amplifier of the speaker, when it amplifies the speech, it actually changes the power consumption, and this information is being transmitted to the LED, and the LED actually exposes this information to the world. If I have a telescope and I'm observing what the LED emits, I can actually reconstruct the sound. So this previous research that we published, this research, by the way, we published in CCS 21, inspired us to do the research that I'm going to describe to you about decrypting, about extracting encryption keys from devices. And actually, this research we managed to do with different type of devices. So this led us to the research of optical cryptanalysis. And the objective was to perform cryptanalysis by obtaining optical traces using photodiode from the device power LED. Now, first of all, the first question was, is the bandwidth provided by the power LED of a device is enough to perform cryptanalysis? So we took this Raspberry Pi, it has a power LED, we connected the photodiode and we measured the light emitted by this photodiode, and while we put different frequencies, and we could see easily that the power LED of a device provide information on the device power supply voltage up to a frequency of 500 kilohertz that we added to the power supply to see whether the LED actually can emit it. Question number 2, can we detect operations performed by the device? And the answer is yes. Repetitions of operations that are performed by the device can be detected by analyzing the optical measurements obtained from the device power LED. As you can see here, this is a spectrogram. You can see that we identify multiple multiplications, addition, memory access, and so on. This can be easily identified by analyzing the light emitted by the power LED of this Raspberry Pi. Then the question was, can we detect operands of operations performed by the device? And the answer is yes. Operands of the repetitive multiplications that are performed by a device can be detected by analyzing the optical measurements obtained from the device power LED. So the last question was, can we detect the beginning and the end of cryptographic operations performed by the device? As you know, the previous side channel attacks that were done against cryptographic algorithms, most of them focus on measuring the duration of performing the cryptographic operation. Usually the duration actually exposes a lot of information, enough information to break the cryptographic system. So actually what we managed to accomplish here is by making these measurements. You can see here on the left, we managed to measure the time of signature of ECDSA in a smart card, and that allows us to extract the key. In the middle, we managed to measure the sleep and decrypt time of RSA decryptions in a specific library that allow us to extract the key. And on the right, you can see that we managed to extract the key of psych operations of a specific library from Samsung S8, again, all by measuring only the intensity of the power LED using a photodiode here. So the beginning and the end of an encryption can be obtained easily by measuring the emissions of the power LED of the device. So in optical cryptanalysis paper, what we managed to accomplish is, first of all, for this specific GNU-PG libg crypt, we managed to implement the Minerva attack published in 2020, but we managed to do it from the power LED itself, in this case running on a Raspberry Pi, and we managed to extract the key, the ECDSA key, 250 bits ECDSA key, and we also managed to obtain the RSA key of GNU-PG library. Everything was done just by measuring the emissions from the light of the power LED itself using a very, very sensitive photodiode, and you can see it in 3 different devices. On the right, it's a smart card reader. On the center, it's headphones, and on the center, it's a Raspberry Pi. In all these cases, we implemented existing cryptographic attacks that were done by measuring something physical on the device itself. We managed to do it remotely just by monitoring the power LED light emissions. Here you can see the exact setup, how it was done. And of course, we could do it either using a telescope or by attaching the power LED directly to the device itself, as you can see in the center. In all cases, we connected the photoresistor, the very, very sensitive photoresistor, to an A to D. Of course, we amplified everything to obtain the optical measurement. This is a very, very complex setup that requires very expensive sensors. And then we ask ourselves, can we implement the attack in a much more simple setup? So we wanted to try to do it. And what is a simple setup? Trying to obtain the optical measurements using, for example, a simple video camera. And this led us to the second paper that I want to describe to you about video-based cryptanalysis. In this paper, we demonstrated how we can use video-based cryptanalysis. We can extract cryptographic keys from video footage of a device power LED captured by a standard video camera. So the objective here was to perform the cryptanalysis by recording the device's power LED using custom off-the-shelf video camera. Very, very simple and not expensive camera. So that was the objective. But the biggest challenge was that the video cameras, opposed to a photoresistor that I can put a very, very high speed A to D to take very multiple, up to 500,000 measurements per second. Here, we're using a video camera. We can take usually between 60 to 120 frames per second, which means that we can take between 60 and 120 measurements of the power LED per second. And this is really, really nothing. It doesn't allow us to perform cryptanalysis. So initially, we were very, very disappointed that we will not be able to do it. But then we discovered that actually there is a phenomena that exists in 99% of the cameras. Actually, I don't believe that you can find a camera that doesn't include this phenomena. It's a phenomena, it's a way that it are working called rolling shutter. Actually, when we used to think that the picture is a result of one atomic snapshot taken by the video camera. But actually, video cameras are not working like that. They're not taking all the pixels at once, freezing them, and then they send all the frame out of the camera. Actually, they are working using a mechanism called rolling shutter. And actually, they are freezing several number of lines. It could be even one line, and send it out. So practically, as you can see in this video, we are taking several measurements of the same scene. So if, for example, there is a scene that is rotating like that, and is rotating very, very fast, the output will be distorted like you see on the right. But for us, this phenomena is actually amazing because it allows us to take multiple measurements in one frame. And actually, if there is a rolling shutter and there is, for example, 100 measurements per frame, we can measure the power LED intensity 100 times per frame. Multiplied by 60, we can reach to dramatically more measurements. Actually, we managed to reach in our research up to 60,000 measurements of the power LED because of the phenomena of the rolling shutter. And by that, per second, and by that we managed to extract the key using a video camera. So actually, in the case of the ECDSA, we managed to implement the Minerva attack. The Minerva attack was published in 2020. The authors found that the implementation of the ECDSA in a specific library in many cryptographic libraries applies some runtime optimization. The number of iterations of the main loop that you can see it on the right is determined by the number of leading zeros in the nonce. So it creates actually a time dependency between the number of leading zeros in the nonce and the execution time of the ECDSA signing time. And as you remember, in most of the side channel attacks, they want to measure the time that it takes to the cryptographic algorithm to perform a specific action in order to recover the key. So the attacker determined the number of leading zeros in the nonce by analyzing the ECDSA signing time. Now, measuring the signing time is estimated by the number of iterations, determines the number of leading zeros in the nonce. So actually, by making the measurements, we can recover the number of zeros in the nonce. And in the Minerva attack, they demonstrated that actually recovering the number of zeros in the nonce in 4,000 signatures allows them to extract the key. So we replicated everything optically. So the original Minerva attack required attackers to obtain timing measurements from the CPU itself, from the host machine. So you need to have some kind of Trojan in the host machine running there. But they never demonstrated the attack from remote. What we did, we demonstrated all the Minerva attack from remote because we measured the signature time from remote just by analyzing the emissions from the power LED itself, as you will see in a second. Now, in order to make our attack even more remote, we didn't needed line of sight with the device under attack. We can hack, for example, a security camera in an organization, as you can see here. The security camera, we will direct it to, for example, in this case, it's a smart card reader, to the power LED of the smart card reader. And in this case, measurements taken from 16 meters by the compromised security camera, where the attacker can be in any place on Earth, just having access to this compromised security camera, we can extract the key from this device. That's amazing because we can do the attack really, really from remote, where all the information is actually being sent to us from the generous power LED. So you can see here a demo how actually we conducted this attack. You see a compromised security camera zooming on the power LED. Now, because of the phenomena of the rolling shutter, in every frame, we have multiple measurements, intensity measurements of this power LED. And by that, we can have up to 60,000 measurements. And as you can see below, we have the different measurements. Here we can see full light. Here we can see half of the LED. And we can compute T2, T1, and T3. And by computing them, we can establish a very, very good estimation for the signature time. And once we know the signature time, we can implement the Minerva attack. We have a proxy to the number of nonce, and which allows us to eventually extract the key. We managed to recover ECDSA key from 5 other smart card readers that we purchased on Amazon, but from a shorter distance, from 5 to 10 meters. So as you can see here, almost every device that is conducting encryption and has a power LED, its power LED actually can be used to do like a remote power analysis. And if we can conduct the measurements of the power LED from remote by compromising a camera inside the organization, actually we can, from everywhere in the world, can access the power LED of a device and extract the key being used by the cryptographic algorithm running inside this device. And that's amazing because all the other side channel attacks that we know of require the attacker to be in a very, very close proximity of the device under attack. And in this case, we managed to show that we don't need to have a very close proximity to the device under attack to do a side channel cryptographic attack. We just need to hack to a security camera in a close proximity of a device that has a power LED. We need to focus on the power LED. We can take 60,000 measurements of the power LED, and then we can implement different attacks proposed by the security community, cryptographic security community, to extract the key, because we can have a very, very good estimation of the cryptographic operation time. And in many, many attacks, the cryptographic operation time, it's enough in order to extract the key itself. So what is the takeaway messages that I want me to have from this attack? First of all, today we implemented the attack with the current existing cameras. We discovered that over time, the shutter rate and the rolling shutter rate increases dramatically in every, at least iPhone that we bought in our lab. So we expect that in the future, it will be dramatically easier to conduct such type of attack. Somebody can come, by the way, with his iPhone. He can see a device on the wall and use it to extract the key from the device. We did it as well. I didn't have enough time to describe it to you, but you can see it in the paper itself. So in the future, people wandering in organizations, they can take just their iPhone, write an app based on our paper, direct it to a power LED of an IoT device, and extract the key. It could be dramatically easier in the future. In addition, such an attack can be done much more efficiently if you are using a very, very high-speed camera. Then you can achieve dramatically better and faster results. Secondly, we expect that in the future there are going to be more and more devices that are going to be exposed to that, because we are going to have more and more video surveillance cameras that are extremely fast, and such an attack will be dramatically easier to perform. And please remember, that's, from my point of view, the main take-home message. Is the first time that somebody demonstrate a side channel attack that can be done from remote, and actually we proposed a way how to do a power analysis from remote of a device in order to extract the encryption key. Because in many organizations, it's relatively easy to access the security camera if you are a very, very skillful hacker. Usually the security camera is in a different network than the IT network in the organization, but we can bridge the gap here because the security camera, if it can look at an power LED of a device inside the organization, it can be used to extract the key from that device. And that's a huge problem that organization needs to find a way how to address it. By the way, the main way to mitigate such an attack is relatively simple, is to add a capacitor that will filter all the power fluctuations from the power LED. By using capacitors, added them to a physical device, we can really take down all the noise from the power that is being sent to the power LED, and by that prevent attacks that we described from happening. So thank you very much, and we'll be very, very happy to answer any question that you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Yuval. I mean, I'm totally blown away. What an amazing and such an ingenious attack. I mean, it's a remote attack without any Trojan, you know, and who thought those LEDs could be a giveaway of crypto secrets. So really awesome talk. Thank you very much, Yuval. Audience, please post your questions for Yuval as YouTube or LinkedIn comments. We'll pick up them towards the end of the webinar, okay? So now let's move on to the fireside chat, where we explore the future of cybersecurity and prepare ourselves to navigate the ever-expanding cyber battleground. I hope you sort of got a gist of, you know, the art of possible in Yuval's presentation, right, in terms of attacks. We have a wonderful lineup today of academic and industry experts. We have a great mix. Each one of them is a stalwart in their area. But in the interest of time, I'm going to introduce them briefly, and I'm sure their words will do talking for them. So I have a pleasure of introducing Professor Sandeep Shukla. He is currently the Rajiv and Ritu Batra Endowed Chair in Cybersecurity and Professor of Computer Science and Engineering Department at IIT Kanpur. He is an IEEE Fellow and ACM Distinguished Scientist. Before joining IIT Kanpur, he was a professor at Virginia Tech, USA. He has won a number of awards, and his major research interest is in cybersecurity of critical infrastructures, cybersecurity of IT/OT systems, and applications of blockchain technology and security and privacy. Welcome, Sandeep. Great to have you with us. Then,
Thank you, Sachin.
yeah, welcome. Now I have pleasure of introducing Dr. Shweta Agarwal. She is an associate professor at the Computer Science and Engineering Department at IIT Madras. She earned her PhD from UT Austin and then did her postdoc work at UCLA. Her area of research is cryptography and information security with focus on post-quantum cryptography. Again, she has won multiple awards. Welcome, Shweta.
Thank you, Sachin.
And now we have Karthik Shivkumar. I have pleasure of introducing. Karthik is a principal engineer at Cisco Systems India. He works on network security products. He has been at Cisco for more than 17 years now, and he is an ACM India eminent speaker. He is also very keen on teaching youngsters how to actively participate in cybersecurity, a very important thing, you know, from human aspects perspective. And Karthik volunteers at iSplit in India in his spare time. Welcome, Karthik.
Thank you, Sachin.
So Great to have you all on the panel. But before we get into our discussion, I just want to share with you that we did a quick LinkedIn survey after announcement of this webinar, and we asked this question, that which technology do you think will have the biggest impact on the future of cybersecurity? We gave 4 options: AI, blockchain, IT with combination of 5G, 6G, and quantum. And we don't need AI to analyze or predict the winner here. AI is a hands-down winner. Quantum computing came second, a bit distant second, and very close to quantum computing were both blockchain and IoT. Okay, so that kind of sets the stage for our discussion today. I'm sure we'll cover more technologies today. See, I'm thinking we'll look at 3 different facets of the security challenge, posed by any new technology. So part 1 is the adoption challenge, because many of these technologies have some inherent vulnerabilities. It's in technology itself, and you have to make the technology safe and secure to use, right? So that's part 1. Part 2 is, I would call it more of resilience, so defending against the adversarial ramification of technology itself. And the last important one is from defense point of view, how to use technology to improve security, right? So I'm hoping that we'll have discussion covering all these facets. So let's go do a quick round 1 from the adoption point of view. And AI being winner, I'm going to start with AI, okay? And I'm going to bring Yuval again back in spotlight. So Yuval, I have a question related to AI and how to make it safe and secure to use, okay? So as we know, AI models are quite brittle and they are sensitive to noise. Attackers can exploit them by either injecting noise during training or testing. So robust and resilient AI is very desirable, right? I mean, when I read a lot of different articles, it seems like adoption of AI in society may depend on it, right? So can you please throw some light on how is the progress on this front, right? And I get very depressed, every time I see more and more new attacks coming. So can you tell us, I mean, where we are headed? And do you expect like at some point in future, we'll have perfectly robust and resilient AI? So over to you, Yuval.
I want to say that you talked about who is going to play a major role in AI 1.
Yes.
And I want to tell you, it's a little bit, I think that the question was okay, but the answer is misleading.
Okay.
Because AI, from one hand, it's a perfect tool to make more security. But on the other hand, in my opinion, AI increased dramatically the attack surface against systems. So it's playing 2 roles. From one hand, it could be used for improving our security, and on the other hand, it opens a huge attack surface that we don't know exactly how to address. And you address part of the problem, that we, by a very, very small fluctuations, we can actually tweak the AI algorithm to get another answer, another desired for the attacker answer. And today there is a huge amount of research being done, especially in the academia, but not only in the academia, in trying to make AI more resilient to these small fluctuations that actually change the decision of the AI algorithm. And we are trying to focus on either to filter the fluctuation from the input, or trying to make the model more robust, or when we see the answer of the AI algorithm, based on the answer to decide whether the answer is valid or not, for example, by inspecting the explainability of the results of the AI algorithm. But currently, I see that there is a battle between people that are trying to make AI more robust from one hand,
Mhm.
And on the other hand, from attackers that manage to find additional loopholes.
Mhm.
And the main reason that attackers manage to find more loopholes is because if you analyze the decision boundary of AI, since it is based on relatively very, especially in the vision domain, very small number of samples compared to the huge amount of space.
Mhm.
For example, in a vision, the space is almost infinite, and the number of samples that we are training a model is finite.
Mhm.
So eventually the attacker can find a place in the decision boundary that can give him some kind of an advantage using a small perturbation. So it's a huge problem. AI works very well when there is not an adversary in place. When an adversary is coming in front of the AI is in a very big problem.
So Yuval, I mean, since you, I mean, this is not so encouraging, if you ask me, then how do we raise awareness about the fallibility of the system? See, the worry is this, that we might have two situations, right? That people will stop trusting AI altogether, or they may trust some vulnerable AI, and that has its own implications, right? So how do you create awareness? I mean, you think this is to be done in some sense top down by pushing some strong regulations and sort of only releasing such AI which is safe and sound, or you think that more needs to be done, on the ground for people?
First of all, it depends on which type of system. For example, in regular machine learning system where we have multiple features that are being used to get a reasoning about the specific situation, we in a very research we published with my PhD student many years ago, we discovered that different features, the efforts of the attackers are different. In other words, we can make a more robust model if we rely on features that it's dramatically harder for the attacker to change.
Mhm.
So this is one way where we can go. And secondly, we need to develop frameworks of how to make AI systems more robust. It could be that the algorithm specifically is not robust, but the system as a whole is robust because it includes several mechanisms. And first of all, we need to raise the awareness as researchers that AI is vulnerable from one hand. And on the other hand, we need to create methodologies of how to build a more robust AI systems. And by the way, in some cases, it's not relevant. In some cases, it's extremely relevant because it's a mission-critical system that must work perfectly.
Point taken, Yuval. Thanks for the input. So maybe I'm going to now switch topic and look at mobility, and especially 4G, 5G transition that we are having. So I'm going to put this question to Karthik. So Karthik, considering the architectural change, from 5G networks compared to 4G networks, so how does this change the security considerations for building out 5G networks? And how can we guard against attack on 5G networks?
Sure, Sachin. One of the key changes that if you look at the architecture of 4G versus 5G, one of the key changes was the disaggregation of services itself. So if you look at 4G, it's a very monolithic piece. You would go to a vendor and buy a 4G stack and you would just deploy them. When you look at 5G, it's more disaggregated, where every piece of every service that is part of the 5G is now separated out. And not only is it separated out, but now they can function the same way that you would think of an enterprise app, which is that you can put them in the cloud, you can run multiple instances of them, you can scale them dynamically. So really, the 5G service now looks exactly like Amazon or something like that, right? It's basically you're able to get different services from different vendors and connect them all together using APIs, and then you could scale them dynamically and build out that way, right? Which is completely different from how the telecom operators used to do 4G. So when you look at the telecom operators' point of view, this is a change that they have to get used to. right? Which means that we are now talking about all those things that you've normally done in enterprise security that applies now to critical service technology, which is telecom. Telecom is a very critical service, and now you're bringing telecom. I won't say upgrade or downgrade. It's a different way of doing things, right? And so when you look at 5G, when you start looking at dynamically scaling, when you start looking at API-based services, and so on, it changes the security landscape very significantly. Starting from the very basic, which is that deploying such a service is definitely much more complicated because you're looking at different parts that need to talk to each other. How are you setting up your APIs? How are you setting up your connectivity? If they're coming from different vendors, then how do they talk to each other? So definitely 3GPP defines a lot of these standards. But then now you start looking at different vendors and seeing how do they interoperate with each other and so on. So one additional factor in this is the whole open RAN systems that you start to see now, which is not the case with 4G before, right? Which is actually in a way it's very good because now you have these open systems that you could go bring and then deploy them in the telecoms network, right? Which is actually a very great thing. So definitely moving from 4G to 5G is changing the security model for telecoms. One of the key things that I think we'll have to look here is for the telecom operators themselves is the change of mindset, right? And when they start configuring all of these things, they have to learn how to configure them. If you make a configuration mistake, then that's a bigger worry, I would say, than the not following the standard, because it's very difficult to be certified if you're not following the standard. And the standards, actually, if you look at the 5G standards, they have a lot of security built in terms of authentication. Your number, your IDs cannot be sent out unencrypted. They cannot be sent in plain text. So there's a lot of security that is coming in as part of the 5G standard itself. But what really matters is the ability to configure them, deploy them at the kind of scale that we're expecting 5G networks to be deployed. Right. I think that's the key part. That's the key challenge, I would say, in terms of migrating from 4G to 5G is the absolute change in architecture, which means that the total change in learning, the total change that we have to think about in terms of how the telecoms have to go deploy. And when it again reiterating the fact that telecom is a critical infrastructure, making this kind of a big change is something for us to to take a lot of note of. Right. So that's what I would say. So from the 5G standpoint.
Thanks, Karthik. So, very interesting to hear that the kind of change that's required, from the telecom operator perspective. Typically, I've seen that, there is always a trade-off between security and some other non-functional property. But I hope that here, right amount of security is being brought in, without making any compromise. Since you mentioned about critical infrastructure, that's a good segue for me. I am now going to go to Sandeep, and I really want to check with him. Sandeep, what do you see as major technical or maybe non-technical challenges and hurdles when it comes to critical infrastructure security in general? And I have a follow-up thing, being Indian, I would love to know how is India doing in this space? For example, if we were to compare between situation in India with, say, situation in US, where are we in this space? So, yeah.
Okay, so I think that other than the kind of things that you will just cautioned us about, that you have cameras that could get your secure keys out and so on, which are technological challenges. But I think that our attackers are still not at that sophistication level. We are seeing attacks from mostly based on bad configuration, bad rule sets, bad hygiene, cybersecurity hygiene, poor authentication practices, and various other, lack of patching vulnerabilities in the software, firmware, operating system, and so on. So I think that to me, it seems like working with a number of different critical infrastructure organizations, I see that majority of the problem is not technological, but it's more on the process and also on the people side. And the lack of awareness and lack of regulation in, like, for example, in Indian sector, in critical infrastructure sector, there are certain critical infrastructure which are very well regulated. For example, BFSI, the banking and finance. But if you look at the oil and gas, or if you look at the transportation sector, and even to some extent, the power sector regulation is right now, as we speak, is being written. So therefore, we have a problem with respect to organizations that are not understanding the threat landscape. They're not taking care of necessary cybersecurity controls because nobody is asking them to, and nobody is penalizing them for not having that. So I think that what I read from US, for example, from the kind of stories that come out, and the kind of advisories that come out from CISA, for example, their critical infrastructure security agency. It seems to me that they also have this very similar problem. It's not so much technology. Of course, there is OT-IT convergence issue, and not having the right level of separation. Also, third party, the supply chain security is one of the major problem that we have seen in multiple different cases. But overall, I think that it's the lack of regulatory control, and lack of awareness, lack of interest from the topmost management of the organization. These seem to be the major problems. So I think that technology is not I mean, technology, of course, has the current cybersecurity tools and techniques have various blind spots and various other things, but I think that that's not what the attackers are exploiting. They're already exploiting what we actually could have done, but haven't done, kind of thing. And I think for the second part of your question, I think the situation in India, BFSI sector is much like probably way ahead of many other countries, including probably United States. On the other hand, if you look at the power or other oil and gas, etc., then we are nowhere near where they are. Even they are not in good shape, but we are actually much worse.
Thanks. So that was quite encouraging, Sandeep. So I think what I heard was that we know how to mitigate those issues. It's just that there is lack of will, and that is getting fixed. And our money is safe, but we may not have oil to purchase. So we need to be careful. Okay, great. Awesome, Sandeep. So Nandip, I just want to move on now. I actually, before I go to Shweta, I had a follow-up thing to discuss with you on blockchain, because blockchain was also one of our candidates, the poll we did. And I also have some personal experience with blockchain. So I'm very curious to know your response to this. So let me first tell a story to our audience, So see, in 2017, there was this company called Long Island Iced Tea Corporation. And that rebranded itself as Long Blockchain Corporation. They just put blockchain as a name and in their name. And such was this blockchain frenzy then that their stock price jumped by almost factor of 4 in that same week, Of course, later this company's shares were delisted because they never transitioned to blockchain technology. But you imagine, how they sort of rode on that blockchain wave. But this long story short, I think blockchain has actually seen it all, right? There was this extraordinary hype, Sandeep, as we remember. and then what Gartner calls, this trough of disillusionment for any technology. They have their hype cycle. So, in fact, even from where we are also seeing quite a bit of decline in enterprise exploration in this domain. So what's your take on this? And where do we go with blockchain? Why is there adoption challenge for blockchain? And you personally are interested in utilizing blockchain for security and privacy, So how is it going? And I'll tell you what is slightly confusing, because our government is very keen, there are so many initiatives that are trying to leverage blockchain, blockchain technology. So please educate us.
Okay, so actually, we started the National Blockchain Project funded by the National Cybersecurity Coordinator's Office way back in 2018. And we did work with multiple governments to do blockchain-based, for example, keeping the integrity of land registry. We actually did some work on self-sovereign identity, which was used for providing certificates, sovereign certificates, and so on. But my current belief is that, first of all, it's a very, very clever technology, right? So there is no doubt that Bitcoin actually was quite a bit of revolutionary idea. But the problem with that is that it cannot scale. Right. So, for example, we know that Bitcoin still cannot do more than 6-7 transactions per second. Ethereum can do maybe right now after the proof of stake, it can probably do a little better, like 25. And then they started doing this, reduction of security. So therefore they started doing this layer 2 blockchains. And we see that layer 2 blockchains are used to increase the scale. But the kind of scale that a country like India needs, for example, for UPI, for example, has 10,000 transactions per second or more. If you actually want to really scale to the entire population, will need probably 100,000 transactions per second. And if you want the security a layer 1 blockchain, the base layer blockchain provides, that cannot be obtained with that kind of scale. And therefore, I do not think that it will ever become a payment mechanism in India which can be trusted, because more relaxation of security you make by going to layer 2, more difficult it is for us to actually regulate it. So, for example, right now we are struggling in a committee to actually figure out how to regulate the real world asset tokenization, right? So this because when you do not know where the operators are of your various nodes and what they are doing, what their intentions are, you cannot really figure out how to regulate this technology. Therefore, I don't think in payment space it will ever make anything in India. And on top of that, I think that we have this problem that even the layer 1 blockchains, like for example, Bitcoin, 90% of the hash power is in top five mining pools. And in case of staking, in case of Ethereum, it's about 60+% in the top 4 or 5 stakers. So this is not really decentralized and trustless and all that stuff, because I wouldn't trust those 5 or whatever mining pools. I would rather trust my central bank or my regulator than I would trust in his random 5 people. They might be part of Illuminati or whatever, who knows, right? So I think that this whole blockchain has been a hype. It gave rise to many very interesting technological ideas. I think a lot of it can be used in many distributed computing environment. I think there are a lot of interesting experimentation about what trust means, but I don't think that I trust the trustlessness that blockchain initially was hyping about, and I think it's a gone case. So I think we might as well, just make it an academic exercise. Of course, there is lot of hype, and lot of young people have staked their future career by creating these startups, so-called Web3 startups and so on. And I feel really bad for them because I don't think it will go anywhere in the long run. They might make some money in the short run, but eventually it will not make go much anywhere. So that is my usual current mindset. Maybe somebody will convince me otherwise, but I think that at this point, that's what I feel.
Yeah, no, you just reinforced what my thinking was, or my understanding was, and much more articulately. And I can imagine neither you nor I have any bitcoins.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to remain poor. And on that happy note, I want to kind of move to the next round in some sense, about resilience. That how do we defend against adversarial implications of some of these technologies, right? And we started with AI and we talked about 5G mobility, we looked at critical infra and also blockchain. Now let's come to quantum, which is sort of every day, there is some or other very positive news, be in terms of the size of quantum computer now we have, or the breakthroughs in terms of algorithms, systems, communication. So I'll go to Shweta now, and we are talking about resilience, Shweta, here. So this is resilience against quantum, when we think of as a security researcher. So can you please educate our audience about post-quantum crypto? What is it? Why is it essential? And let me also immediately put next follow-up to you, that as we all know, there has been this famous PQC competition being running, NIST has been doing that since 2016 to come up with standards. But so far, to the best of my knowledge, there is no perfect replacement yet. Okay. So please tell us about that too, that how far we are to finding that ideal post-quantum crypto algorithm. So over to you, Shweta.
Okay, thanks, Sachin. So first, just to talk about what is post-quantum cryptography, it's actually exactly what you said. So, typically when we think of cryptography, in fact, just of security, there has to be an attacker for this discussion to even make sense, right? So generally in cryptography, we think of the attacker as being a classical computer. And now here, it doesn't really matter whether, this is a supercomputer or, it is my laptop or it is my phone, because the guarantees kind of handle that scaling quite gracefully. But this changes very significantly if you play not with the quantity of resource, but the very quality of resource. So if now your attacker is a quantum computer, then what happens, right? And it turns out, we have this breakthrough work by Shore, Grover, and others that show that in the setting where you have quantum algorithms breaking classical cryptography, there are some very popular crypto systems which completely succumb to that, right? So all our number theoretic crypto like RSA, group-based crypto, discrete log-based crypto, and so on, they completely succumb to that. So it's sort of completely dead, like totally gone, right? So this is the situation. And post quantum crypto, as the name suggests, is a question of, can you still have security even when your attacker is quantum? And here it's worth emphasizing that the crypto system that you're building and deploying is still classical. So I'm still going to design an encryption scheme or whatever and run it on my classical computer. So I'm sort of creating this asymmetry. The honest users whose data has to be protected, they are running classical computing. but we're giving the attacker extra power. So we're saying the attacker can now be quantum, and this quantum computer or quantum computing algorithm is now going to try and break open my data, but can I still get some kind of security? And the answer happily for us is yes. I mean, there are lots of problems, mathematical problems that we can conjecture with reasonable confidence to withstand even quantum attacks. So we kind of redesign cryptography to withstand these attacks, and that's post-quantum crypto. Now, coming to the second part of your question, which is about the NIST competition. So indeed, we've had this NIST competition, and over the last few years, we finally have, a short list of algorithms. Currently, we've still only really been looking at very basic cryptography, like public key encryption, digital signatures, that sort of cryptography, like nothing very advanced. But for these, we have some candidates. And you were asking whether there is a best candidate here, right? So in general, I wonder if there is ever a best candidate for anything, because, these mathematical assumptions, they vary. And our understanding as a scientific community is, for each of these assumptions, we have some understanding. The current candidates, obviously, we believe them to be secure. So they're based, on lattice-based assumptions or symmetric key crypto and so on, which we, believe to be secure. They have sort of different hard problems underlying them. Right? So their security is based on different hard problems. So I think, which one will finally be the more popular one, this may be just something that time tells us. Of course, my personal favorite is, lattice-based crypto, but that's just because I work on that. So, someone else could give a different answer to that.
So, Shweta, I have another follow-up question on this. See, many organizations are looking to replace their classical crypto with PQC. In fact, some big companies have already announced that they have done that. I think governments also worldwide are recommending, people, organizations do this. So what happens? I mean, as you rightly probably pointed out, that there is never the ultimate best, as our understanding evolves, we'll keep upgrading or coming up with newer algorithms. So how should organization approach it? Because if I were to replace it now, right, and let's say 5-10 years down the line, something else is going to show up, then how do I manage it?
So that's a great question. And I don't think that there is a silver bullet answer to that, and this is, I want to emphasize that this question that you're asking is not just about post-quantum. This actually applies, to any cryptographic scheme, even prior to this question of quantum, because at the time that you're trying to deploy some cryptographic algorithm in your organization, you have to make a choice. And what can really that choice be based on? I mean, it can be based on the state of the art at the time that you're doing this deploying. It could be, compatibility with your existing systems. It could be the expertise of, whoever is your service provider. So there are a whole bunch of factors, many of them local factors, right, which govern this decision. And then later, it could certainly happen that as our understanding progresses, like our mathematical understanding progresses, right, then we find that so-and-so algorithm is actually not as secure as we thought. And we may need to upgrade this, or whatever, modify this or whatever. In which case, you have to have the know-how and the will and the finances and everything that it takes to move. So I think that organizations need to have this agility, really, right? And I also think that organizations need to believe in science a little bit more. Like, I think that we see too much of this, I want an end-to-end solution. Like, here's my problem. within 6 months, give me an end-to-end solution. But science doesn't work like that. And it's good for organizations also to invest a little bit more time and patience and sort of effort in, engaging with the scientific community so that this agility can be maintained, because not everything will give you instant returns and instant profit, but a little bit of forward thinking, I think here can go a really long way.
No, great answer, great response, Shweta. I think you touched upon this very important crypto agility topic, and that's quite fundamental. I don't think currently organization enterprise apps or systems are built in that manner. But as you rightly said, a bit of forward thinking, if they really go for it now, then they are going to reap benefits forever. So this is a great takeaway message. Thanks for that. So now I'm going back to Yuval. Yuval, we discussed about sort of AI weakness, vulnerabilities. Let me go further, and now talk about LLMs. We can't have a session without mentioning LLM because it would be considered a foul, So let me bring it up. At present, the situation is that organizations won't have their own personal on-prem LLM. They are typically trying to utilize third-party LLM, and there is a very genuine concern about the intellectual property being directly shared with LLM, because those third-party servers will have access to that information. LLMs in turn will get trained and they will memorize that, in some shape and form. And this is a huge concern. This, I think, is kind of a showstopper. Organizations are not able to exploit this. So how is this issue being currently handled, And what you think, I don't think it's perfectly handled so far. Maybe you can educate us. And going forward, how do you foresee this problem being addressed, we can always say that you should deploy your on-prem LLM, but that probably is one extreme of it. So please throw some light on this.
I think that you are raising a very, very important question. I'm doing in my lab research on two domains. First of all, in trying to understand how we can employ LLM to do a better security. And on the other hand, on the security and privacy challenges of using LLM. First of all, about organizations. Definitely, using a public LLM like ChatGPT or Copilot gives you a huge advantages. On the other hand, the organizations are exposed to a huge risk of leakage of critical assets to an external party. And you know what? Even on the encrypted channel between you and it's very, very risky. And we did some research on checking, for example, I cannot expose all the results, but for Copilot, and I can tell you that it's very, very dangerous to work with Microsoft Copilot. Very, very dangerous, because you are leaking a huge amount of data to Microsoft. And the question is how much you trust Microsoft and how much you trust that Microsoft itself is not compromised in order to obtain data about yourself. So I think that critical stuff that relates to assets of organizations will have to look for on-prem solutions. And I believe that eventually the market is going to generate on-prem solutions that will allow organizations to do specific tasks without accessing an external LLM as a service. Regarding more general AI tasks, it's going to be very, very challenging because some models will never be on-prem, and companies will never give you a subset of the model to be located on-prem. And that's going to be a huge dilemma for organizations, whether to risk their intellectual property and access a dramatically more accurate models, or to do something inferior locally that for sure preserves their IP. It's going to be a huge challenge for many organizations.
So So I guess, I mean, so I get the point. So we are basically saying that for certain use cases, we might be able to do something more meaningful while guarding the confidential information. But in general, it doesn't seem like a elegantly or efficiently solvable problem. And that's something we have to take a note of. I think, yeah, I think that's quite interesting. In general, I have seen sort of a lot of euphoria about LLM, people wanting to do Copilot for anything and everything that organization does. But I think this is a great caution. So thanks for that, Yuval.
Just to finish, I'm currently trying to develop security. I would call it tools that will allow the security analysts to increase its productivity in front of logs, in front of events, using LLMs. Now, in this case, for example, nobody will send its security events to an LLM on the cloud.
Yeah.
You must do it locally because it's the most critical issues of an organization to expose which security alerts emerge in the organization. You are not going to send it now to OpenAI.
Yeah.
So in this case, definitely you need to have a local LLM. Maybe it's inferior, but at least you are keeping all the dirty laundry inside the premises of the organization.
Yeah. No, point taken, Yuval. That's a great example. Thanks for that.
Just I want to say to
Sandeep.
Yuval, I would rather go to Stack Overflow than to an LLM.
Yes.
Yeah. No, great points. Thanks, Sandeep. Thanks, Yuval. So I'm again going to now switch domain, and I'm going to go back to Karthik now and discuss about IoT security. You see, there is this, at least there was a saying in the security community that S in IoT stands for security, just to indicate that how poor, the state of IoT security is, because there is no S in IoT, and it probably has some similar issues, that Sandeep was talking about with critical infra security, that all known problems having very sort of well-known and nice solutions, but somehow not being implemented, And then we saw this Mirai botnet, in 2016, and associated, distributed denial of service attacks. Now, Karthik, with 5G, we are expecting that this number of IoT devices is going to explode, So how are we going to ensure, that no repeat of a Mirai again, right? And in general, I mean, tell us about the state of IoT security in general. Yeah, very keen to know. Yeah.
Sure, Sachin. The saying still holds, by the way. I mean, the S in IoT definitely stands for security. Right? The key problem with IoT devices is that they're meant to be very cheap devices. And security is not cheap, right? I mean, the amount of compute that you would need to do any kind of security is not exactly cheap. Right. And a lot of the times the IoT devices are also done by companies that are just very quickly manufacturing something, maybe getting them into the market, and then don't provide software updates, for instance, right? Or just move on to doing something else. I mean, it may be a short-term thing. They did something, they didn't see any value out of it, and then they just moved on. But the product is still in there, right? I mean, it's still running. And people are still using them. They don't have any upgrades to it. I mean, imagine running Windows 97 or something today, right? I mean, that's the same level that we have with IoT devices. They're just running and nobody wants to touch them anymore. So that is a big problem. But at the same time, the IoT devices are collecting critical information. So a lot of the times they're in manufacturing, for instance, in steel plants. They're there, checking temperature of the steel. I mean, imagine that, right? That's a very, very key place that the IoT devices are running. So imagine being able to attack that and then disrupt how steel production happens or something along those lines. Actually, this is one point where I want to tie together both what Shweta said and you all said as well. So one is around the crypto agility. I mean, the IoT devices either came with no security or very, very minimum security, and there's no way to upgrade. right? Even let's say going to TLS 1.3 is impossible, right? And just not going to happen, right? And TLS 1.3, moving to TLS 1.3 was a problem even for enterprises as a whole, right? Because a lot more information became encrypted as part of TLS 1.3, right? And that itself turned a lot of the packet inspection got, pretty messed up because of that, right? And so it was a big problem. And the same thing, the data that is collected from these IoT devices, you surely can't send them to an LLM that's sitting in the cloud. They are manufacturing data. There are a lot of critical infrastructure data that comes as part of that, right? So, so the IoT devices, but going back to the security in IoT by itself, right? As we all looked at it, right? And 5G is meant for machine-to-machine communication, right? And machine to management communication and so on. So, which is basically all about IoT devices, and that was the whole point of the very ultra-reliable, low-latency communication. All of that came because of the expectation that there'll be a lot more IoT devices in play using 5G. Now, 5G itself provides a lot of security, which is the good part, right? The fact that the 5G was designed as a protocol to provide you more security in terms of authentication, in terms of how the data is sent. So that's the good part. But the device themselves, don't have any signing on them, for instance, right? So the firmware that comes with the device, I think they can be easily replaced with, exactly what Mirai did. In fact, if you go back to Mirai, Mirai was not even a very difficult attack. It primarily used default usernames and passwords as much as possible, right? And that was all it did, really. Right? It just had a dictionary of default username and password. It verified what device you were, and then tried the default username and password, and that's it. That was all it had to do. So we are not even again talking about very high security. We're just talking about human not looking at the security of that device very well, right? Again, goes back to the same human problem. But even otherwise, right? I mean, the IoT devices don't really have signed firmware, for instance. They do not do any kind of verification on boot up. I mean, some of the common things that we have now come to expect from our laptops, from any computer devices, from our phones, for instance, they don't exist in IoT devices at this point, right? So there's no TPM chips that look to see whether there's cryptographic signatures of the whole boot up process and verify, and so on, right? So none of those parts are there as part of IoT security. So the problem really is the device itself, and the fact that we don't, as humans, we are the weakest link, right? We are not changing the default passwords. We deploy them in unsecured environments with physical access. Physical access is another hard problem to solve, right? Yes, the device itself is not secure, let's say, but if it were in an air-gapped network behind a lot of physical security, again, that's something that could protect the device as a whole, because nobody's allowed to go in. But then we also deploy these IoT devices in open agricultural fields, let's say, right? Anybody could just walk in there, change the firmware, and do anything they want with it, right? And it's completely out in the open. So these are all the problems. I mean, there is definitely a lot of problems. 5G may exacerbate the problem simply because there's now like a lot more devices connecting to the network. A lot more open devices connecting to the network, and a single open device could really be setting up the whole network for a lot of problems, right? I think it's definitely there. So I don't know where it's, how to make this happen without like pumping more money or setting up regulations. I like Sandeep's point on the regulation. I mean, the BFSI sector is secure because of the regulations that accompany that, right? And maybe in all of these sectors, I think that regulations are necessary to say that you must have this level of security applicable in order for you to be able to deploy devices. Maybe that's the right approach to do it. Without that, just left to themselves, I don't think we are going to see any increase in IoT security and security for IoT devices by themselves.
No, I think very well said. I think I agree with you, because if you look at current market forces, there is no real sort of neither there is a stick nor there is a carrot, for the manufacturers to do the right thing with security, and maybe regulation might be the way to go. Sandeep, you have something to add?
No, so I have two points as a follow-up of Karthik's points. One is that recently we figured out that there are thousands of cameras all over my campus. And all of them were accessible. We could actually look at their past record. We could actually look at the current record. Even the security head was in the meeting where we were showing this, and we could show his lab and what his students were doing inside his lab. And the reason why this is happening is because people do not even ask for any kind of permission, because there is no security policy on the on campus which says that if you want to connect a security camera of so and so Chinese make or whatever, you are going to have to get this vetted by some VAPT or something, or things like that. And the most of the thing, as Karthik said, were because of default password or because they have never been patched for last 10 years, and they have been there. Also, same thing we found with the other phones, the IP. We have all voice over IP phones, and all these phones had the same issues. And also we found that even the door locks and those smart card based door locks and everything, we could get to all of them, right? So that's one issue that again here the process that is at fault, because we need to have a policy that if you are going to install things like this on our network, you need to get permission, and there has to be proper due diligence before you do that. And also you are responsible for patching and whatever, or otherwise replacing with a new version if it cannot be patched and so on. The second thing that I want to mention here is that so my friend Yuvraj in CMU, his lab has created something called Trustmark, and a White House has been trying to use this as more like a voluntary thing, not as a regulation, that all IoT devices should come with something like a trust mark, like the nutrition label of in food packages. Like you have to have, like, what are the privacy and security properties that this device has. And that is something that we are also trying to do in India. I mean, not do, it's not within our jurisdiction, but trying to convince some people in the government that they should also go for something like this. That might help, but it may not help a lot, but at least that's a start. I mean, it will make people more aware that when they buy a device, they're not necessarily going only for the cheapest device, but also look for something that is related to privacy and security.
Yeah, I think the other thing, if I may say something, I think the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that with something like Shodan, for instance, these devices are just very widely available for search, right? I mean, I could easily go to Shodan and find any of these CCTV cameras, Sandeep, that you have on your campus, very likely, right? And as you point out, just be able to access them sitting, wherever I'm sitting, very, very far from your campus, and I could easily access that. A lot of people don't realize that all those IoT devices are accessible on search engines like Shodan. Right? So that's a big problem.
Yeah, but very interesting points. Sandeep, you talked about these trust labels. I have seen some similar discussion in privacy community, about assigning privacy labels. I don't think it has gone very far, but interesting. I think the same idea kind of going across different domains. Great. So now let's quickly go to round 3, which I said we'll discuss about how to utilize this technology, we talked about, for improving security. And I'm going to go to Shweta now, because she talked about resilience from or against quantum, right? Now, Shweta, I have a question on the other side of the coin, quantum for security. And as I said earlier, I mean, there are always, these major wins being reported now in terms of quantum communication that promises ultra secure communication channel. There is news about quantum key distribution, which might allow sort of realization of Shannon's one pad scheme, So what does this all mean? Is quantum for security here? Again, will it mean the end of, say, PKI as we know it? Yeah, I mean, tell our audience, your sort of thoughts on quantum for security, and also what are emerging topics, say, for crypto research in this domain?
Great question. So with regards to quantum for security, I want to say, in contrast to what you hinted, it's actually not here, right?
Okay.
And the reason is the following. See, in cryptography, it's very important to have an overestimation of the attacker's power. And this is actually like in mathematics, right? There exists symbol and there is a for all symbol. These are fundamentally different, right? So when it comes to breaking something, there exists is enough. So it's very, very important that everybody secure against, that first large scale quantum computer. Neighboring countries could already be storing data, right? And as soon as their quantum computer is powerful enough, they're going to open it and read it, right? So there is a very great importance to very quickly move to post quantum in terms of securing your data. Now, why not use quantum for securing data? Of course, if you had quantum computers to secure data, you could do some really fantastic things. A quantum key distribution is already very well studied and popular. I mean, people are building it. I'll talk more about kind of emerging topics in quantum crypto, but what I want to point out is that this is something which is corresponding to the for all symbol. Because to deploy quantum cryptography, right, everybody needs to have a good quantum computer. And right now we are very, very far from that. So, our best quantum computers at the moment can, have a few hundred qubits or something. And this is clearly not enough. And moreover, these can only be built by like the richest and most sort of the big players in the game. It's not like, all of us can sort of build and use quantum computers. So I think that there is a significant gap. And understandably so, it is natural, right, that it should be like that. You want to protect against even one powerful adversary, right? But you don't want to use a technology or rely on it before it is at a mature enough level that most, if not all, can have it. So that's my take on that point. And coming to emerging topics, I think that it's a fantastic area. I mean, I just love it. Not just quantum crypto, but also post-quantum crypto. Because let me talk about each in turn. Both of these are extremely young areas of research, right? So post-quantum cryptography, well, I already talked a lot about how it is a very important, very, very important area. But it's also something that, we don't understand really quite that much, because quantum computing, quantum algorithms really, as a global community, how much is our understanding? It's actually not that much. So currently there is sort of this one superpower that these quantum algorithms have over classical algorithms. This is, this quantum Fourier transform. And then there are one class of hard mathematical problems that succumb to this, right? But we really don't know what other mathematical hardness is going to succumb to some, additional power that a quantum algorithm might have. So it's very important for us to understand as a global community. And I want to say particularly in India that, it's important to pay cognizance to the fact that the mathematics is very, very important. I think that by and large, we don't want to care about this, right? But it's very, very important because, the hardness of these mathematical problems which underlie cryptography is not that well understood, and really trying to understand it in a sustained, multi-stage way, right, is something that every country kind of needs to do. So this is a very young area, like trying to understand what sort of mathematical structures are going to, be fruitful for building post-quantum cryptography. This is a very young area which is, being actively researched. We primarily work on this at IIT Madras. And then quantum cryptography, as you started the question, was about how to use quantum right, in order to do cryptography. And this is another really beautiful, very rich area, very, very sort of nascent. There are all kinds of really wonderful things you can do. I mean, sort of the whole space opens up because the mathematics is very different, and you have to worry about very different types of attacks. Like when you try to prove some scheme secure, you have to worry about things like superpositions and so on. And even when you build the scheme, like let's say an encryption scheme, then you have all these extra sort of, fancy properties that you can take advantage of. So for instance, last year we had a paper at Eurocrypt last year, I think, where we showed that actually in the quantum setting, you can lease out keys, secret keys, So I can give Sandeep a key for 1 year. Okay, and after 1 year, he returns this key to me. And by running some simple test on it, I can guarantee that this key will no longer work for him. That, he has lost all decryption capability. Now, this is something which you can never ever do in the classical regime, right? Because once you have a key, I mean, you can make any number of copies of it, and you can never really erase. You cannot assume that it is erased. Whereas the fact that because of no cloning, right? Like the quantum state, if your secret key is a quantum state, I can actually pass it around like physical cash, right? I can give it to Sandeep, then I can give it to Yuval, then Karthik, then you. And I mean, each time I get it back, I know that it's mine. Now it's mine, right? Like nobody else can use it anymore. And this is just one example. So there are lots of really cool cryptography that's emerging from these things. And it's very exciting for me to see, even just from a pure theory point of view, where this is going to go.
No, Shweta, as you described it just sounds very exciting. And
it's more than exciting. All of this is beautiful, I have to say.
Yeah. I mean, just the properties that you just described,
Yeah.
it's so amazing that you could lease out keys,
Yeah.
Fantastic. So thanks, that was great response. I think in the interest of time, I just want to sort of look at some of the audience questions that are coming to us. And I see one from Chinmay Mule. He is asking about LLMs, probably a question you may want to take up. The question that Chinmay has is, why can't we deploy custom LLMs on cloud platforms? If we are moving enterprise apps from on-prem to cloud, then why not LLMs? So if I understand this question, he's basically saying that use cloud, and have LLMs there, instead of on-prem.
If it's a cloud environment that belongs to the organization, it's from my point of view, it's like on-prem. It's part of the premises of the organization. If it's a GPT running in the cloud of the organization, but accessing an external LLM, then there is an issue of leakage of data. One of the things that we are currently trying to do, which I didn't mention before, is to try to change the queries of the organization in a way that would not leak data about the intent of the organization, but the results will be the same. Imagine yourself that you are having a question, I'm changing the question to a different question, such that they will not learn what I want to know, but the answer actually is the same answer as my hidden question. And we managed to do that, and that's one of the tricks, at least to hide the question of the LLM providers. But in general, if you have your own LLM running in the cloud, it's an issue of whether you trust the cloud or not. But from my point of view, it's part of the premises of the organization.
Right. But depending on the threat model, you may need some additional guardrails, right? If you are putting it up in cloud. But probably that has some sort of standard approaches to be put in.
It's not an LLM question. It's a question of how much you are trusting the cloud in general.
Yeah, right.
Whether you are trusting the cloud provider or not.
I agree. Great. So thanks, you all. I'll pick one more question from audience. This is from K.S. Madhavan, and he has two questions, but let me pick the second one because this is interesting. He's talking about the human being the weakest link in the cyber chain, and how are we going to, let me reword his question. He's talking about how to eliminate this weakest link. I don't think we can eliminate, but how do we strengthen this weakest link? And since you mentioned AI or blockchain, maybe I'll come to you, Sandeep, now. Do you see sort of human blockchain interaction? If we look at, you talked about land registry and the degree certificates, what is your take on that?
No, so I think that, even, a lot of this trust issue is a matter of optics. For example, for the registry in a case, what was happening is that a lot of the cases, the sub-registrar's office from the backend was changing the database, and property was being assigned to somebody else. So there was some issue about knowing whether some such manipulation has happened, and that's where the data integrity provided by the blockchain was used. However, that blockchain nodes were actually in various academic institutes in India that we set up, right? So it's a matter of, do you trust us, right? So we were in IIIT Allahabad, we were in, this, that, and other place. So do you trust us? So it's a matter of, deferring the issue of trust from one, organization to another, and maybe a little bit of decentralization, not a whole, there is no perfect decentralization for sure. So therefore, I think that it's a matter of optics. So I was asked to do the alumni election, and I asked my students to do it on a blockchain. And then when I realized that people do not trust the election officer, I said, do it on the Polygon blockchain, because at least nobody can say that I control the nodes of the Polygon blockchain. Somebody else does. So it's a matter of optics, I think more than actual trust, right? So I think that, but I'm a strong believer that humans cannot be eliminated. So regulations cannot be eliminated. So laws cannot be eliminated. And if we try to do that, we'll get into a dystopian system. So I think that we need to respect our constitutional systems and laws and rules and regulations in order for human civilization to actually prosper. Otherwise, it's, this whole idea of completely automated, trustless thing is bad for human civilization, and I don't subscribe to it. So I think that you cannot eliminate.
Moreover, just to add, I completely agree. And moreover, we don't actually have that kind of technology.
Right.
Like, and in some sense, no matter how much you automate, right, there has to be some end user.
Yeah.
And there has to be some involvement at all times, right? So in fact, I think that even this way of thinking about it, that trying to eliminate humans is somehow probably erroneous, just because finally you're doing this for the human, right? So how can you eliminate the sort of the main player? So we have to find ways, and I completely agree with Sandeep that, finding proper regulations, right, setting up proper processes. You cannot remove things like law. You cannot have something that is just sort of running remotely and everything is fair. That sort of thing does not really exist. So that's just, I think, a utopian type of an idea.
No, same thing. I just want to add on the same point, right? Definitely, I think it's better to educate, right, people on how things must be done and have checklists for everything that basically says, if you're doing something like this, these are the list of things that you should look for, or this is the kind of settings you should use, and so on. I think that education and having that kind of checklist is much better at strengthening the humans than trying to get them out of the way. That's just there's no other option, I see. So.
Yeah, thanks. I think I'm with you on that. And I think I'm just checking time. We are in the last 5 minutes now. So I'm going to request now each one of you to sort of maybe take a minute each and share your take on future of cybersecurity. So we'll probably, Karthik, maybe if you can start, you can quickly share your perspective on.
Sure. So one thing I want to add is that I think we always say cybersecurity, it's a huge umbrella, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even just among the four of us, right, we're seeing such a huge, diversity of areas that we work in, right? When we talk about cybersecurity, I think we want to start to educate people about cybersecurity. Maybe we need to start looking at it as separate areas going forward, right? And maybe that way we can say that, okay, we need to have talent in this specific area, like post-quantum cryptography, right? And rather than saying that is part of cybersecurity, right? And I think if we start doing it, then we can be much more open about talking about certain areas. We can have more people come and join us, because when we say cybersecurity, I mean, even doing like malware analysis is cybersecurity, but has no relevance to any of us who are on this specific panel at this point, right? So that's a completely different area of cybersecurity. So for the future of cybersecurity, I think we are probably going to have to break down into the actual different areas that are there, and let each of the areas grow by themselves. And they need to grow by themselves, because I think we need a lot of people working in these areas. But by just calling it cybersecurity, maybe we're not doing it enough justice, right? And we start breaking them up and start talking about each of the individual pieces. Maybe more people will come join us because they see what is actually happening, inside of this huge area. So that's my take.
Yeah, thanks, Karthik. No, and that's how we probably went around, doing this panel, because topics are, while they come under that umbrella, right, they are unique by themselves. So Shweta, now over to you. Your thoughts?
I think it's very hard to say anything about the future of cybersecurity, right? It's like how we say for India that no statement that is made is true, because there are always contradictions. So I don't think I can comment on some very broad future. I think since this is my last minute speaking, maybe what I'd just like to leave with is that we have to have a healthy respect and appreciation for every aspect of this area and of any area, right? And understand that each aspect plays an important role, and kind of try to develop it. So I feel, as I already mentioned before, I feel that the aspect of mathematics is really being ignored a little bit, and it's at the base of it all, right? So it's really I mean, you cannot develop expertise or atmanirbharta, as we say, unless you understand, you have critical mass of experts at every level, and they are communicating and working together in a systematic way. This is something I've been wanting to see, and I hope that the future will bring that.
Yeah, so no, I am with you, Shweta. I'm sure all of us are. I'm slightly surprised. I thought that India, for a while, had a very strong crypto community. But maybe depending on topics, and you talked about really some very new emerging topics.
Yeah, we do have, I mean, the crypto people that we have are very strong, no doubt.
Yeah.
But cryptography is itself a wide area,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's very dispersed. And actually, I was not talking of the academic community.
Right.
I was rather talking about, government policy, industry, because these are players that need to understand the importance of this and understand that we can't provide you quick fixes for anything, right? So having the right approach and the right attitude for this, and having enough respect for it that you kind of give it what it needs, is what I was talking about.
Point taken, Shweta. Thank you. Sandeep, over to you. Your thought.
So coming, coming from what Shweta was talking about, Atmanirbhar. So I think that every country needs to be sort of Atmanirbhar on this cybersecurity space, because a lot of the future geopolitics will be played in the cyberspace, and cybersecurity will play a very important role. And I can imagine, for example, quantum technology will probably be prohibited and things like that. So I think that is something where we are lacking in India. For example, we fund a lot of, we incubated like 50 startups in cybersecurity space, and they are doing very good job. But in terms of government policy, in terms of PSUs and other organizations embracing these startups seems to be missing. And therefore, many of these startups are struggling because even though they have good technology, not necessarily extremely novel or something, but something that can be actually, become fully, indigenous. So I would request, if anybody is listening, that the government should change its policy and embrace the startup ecosystem in cybersecurity, and create this Atmanirbhar, ecosystem in India. I mean, this is not an India-specific webinar, but I'm just hoping that a lot of Indian people are listening, especially in the government, and so I would suggest that we should work together to create the the self-reliant ecosystem for cybersecurity, quantum cryptography, and etc., so that we are never in a situation where we are suddenly embargoed to have a particular technology when we need it.
Thanks. That's a great point, Sandeep. And whom else we can learn from this in a best way than Israel? And now I'm going to go to Yuval for his thoughts on that.
Yes.
They, as a country and a community, have excelled on the security front. So your thoughts about the future?
Look, usually I like to focus on new attack surfaces that are emerging. So in the past, it was IoT security. Now I think that the AI revolutions open a huge attack surface that we will need to address, and the methods that we will need to employ there are totally different than the methods that were used to address other types of attack surfaces. If you compare, for example, the IoT security, we took many ideas from malware detection, intrusion detection into the IoT security domain. There is nothing to bring to the new attack surface generated by AI, because the type of attacks that we need to address are totally different. The skill set that we need to have in the domain of AI is huge. So it's a different type of skill set. We are not training people in students in cybersecurity to understand how exactly AI works on the inside. So that's a huge challenge for us. And I believe that in the future, especially when we are going to have humanoids, human type of robots, people need to secure them as well. So it's going to be even further new attack surface that we will have to address.
Thank you. I think this was very engaging, and at least I was making notes, and I have like 3 pages of them, a lot of takeaways and points to ponder for me. So thank you, Yuval, Sandeep, Shweta, and Karthik for your time and be so open, frank, and sharing insights with our audience. Really, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Sachin,
for such a fantastic
Yeah.
lineup of questions and moderating it in such a great way. Even I learned a lot from this discussion, and I'm grateful to you for giving us this opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes, your
no,
planning was perfect.
No, I
Thank you.
really hope that as a group we'll stay connected, and there is so much to learn from each other. So
Absolutely.
thank you. And of course, Shweta, you, Sandeep, and Yuval are gurus for us. And and you are educators, and we really look up to you. Thank you. And I also want to thank my TCS and ACM India colleagues, We tirelessly
Absolutely,
work
yeah.
to organize this session. While you see me as a front face, there are lots of them behind, who have put in a lot of effort. And of course, last but not the least, I want to thank our audience for being such great sport. A lot of questions coming in. I hope, audience, you found the webinar very informative and engaging. So please do share your feedback, and we look forward to see you again in the next edition. So with that note, we'll sign off. Tata. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Stay
Bye.
safe.